This is the Ancient History Lecture for Monday, the 18th of October, 2021. We've just completed Baker Quiz 3, which is not Baker Quiz 15, just for those of you who were wondering. Baker Quiz 3, not 3 times 5. We are beginning to now not do an overture, which is what the background to the terror attacks was, and not do any form of mythology, but we are actually going from archaeology into history in this section of the unit. From prehistory to pre-classical civilizations. We start out with the universal origins that we have. Universal origins in savagery. Whether you believe God created the earth in 7 days, 6 days, and rested on the seventh, or that we evolved from primates who evolved from mammals and fish and amphibians, and from the first little tiny life 3.8 billion years ago on a roughly 4.5 billion year old planet, or whether you believe that Ahura Mazda and Angra Mainyu came together producing a great explosion, at this point doesn't matter. Everyone agrees we begin in a state of savagery, vicious barbarism. And in this state of savagery, some human beings remain to this day. We're going to talk about that lifestyle, our first human lifestyle, from the Paleolithic era. Now, Paleozoic era meant the age of old life. Paleo means what, given that? Paleolithic, paleo. Sir?
Paleo means old.
Paleo means old. So compared to you, I am paleo. Compared to me, you are neo. Compared to your 5-year-old niece, you are paleo. They are neo. So, paleo. Now we go lithic. Lithos. Lithograph. Yes.
Lithic means stone.
Yes! Old Stone Age. Paleolithic era. Now, I fold the Old and Middle Stone Age. The Middle Stone Age, basically, to me, is transitory, so I don't deal with it. But if you are a proper archaeologist, you know there is a Mesolithic era. I'm just going from Paleolithic to Neolithic. In the Old Stone Age, the great technological revolution that still dominates everything is fire. Fire allows the winter to be survived. Fire allows food to be cooked. Light in the darkness, a weapon against predators, a weapon of mass destruction. Fire defines life. In this time, we are nomadic hunter-gatherers. Nomadic hunter-gatherers. We are nomadic. We travel from place to place. We do not stay in one place, and you will see why in just a little while. Hunter/gatherers. There are 2 jobs. 2 for 2 types of people. Can anyone guess what the 2 types of people are?
Women and men.
Women and men. The menfolk and the women's. That's right. And life and job and role and opportunity, then as almost now, is decided by how you are born. Yes?
Oh, nothing. I'm just
Okay.
like, yay.
By your birth characteristics. So, let's talk about men, and then we'll talk about women. Men are the hunters. Men are the warriors. Men are the scouts. Men leave the camp routinely in groups and alone to bring high-protein meat, to bring news of what's going on in the world around, to protect the tribe from enemy scouts, and to raid enemy encampments for their wealth or their women or whatever. The world is a dangerous place, and men are physiologically and psychologically constructed to engage with the world for the protection of the rest. If you look at, oh God, this is so politically incorrect. But that's because political correctness is a communist term invented in Soviet Russia in the time of Generalissimo Joseph Stalin. Political correctness does not describe reality, it describes how political reality has become. Men are built for combat. Women are built for childbirth. As biochemical machines, those are our functions. Being sentient creatures, we can arise above that or add to those functions. But that's what we were built for. And if you want to understand the instinctive biological programming that goes into us, watch kids 6, 7, 8, 9 years old at play. If you're a babysitter, if you're an older relative, watch kids. There are always exceptions. But in general terms, little boys run and jump and fight and play cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers. They compete to see who's the strongest, the fastest, can jump the farthest. They engage with the physical world and in competition with one another. That is in preparation for a life as a hunter and as a warrior and to compete for the affection of the women. Like a peacock, a human man has to display certain things in order to be considered a fair prospect for dating or for breeding. And the one tends to lead to the other. If you're average, you might or might not get a mate. If you excel, you will get a mate. You might be pretty, you might be ugly, doesn't matter. It's what a man does. It is his function to run, jump, fight, scout, hunt, to engage with the physical world and in competition with other men, in friendly competition within the tribe and in warlike competition outside the tribe. Little boys naturally do this. Why are men suited to this role? Why, if there is danger?
So, I don't know if this is correct or not, but I believe I remember reading somewhere when I was, doing research on something else. But, men were also seen as more expendable because, one man can cost,
You're on the nose. You are absolutely right.
Okay.
Gentlemen, we guard, we fight, we wage war, we hunt. We do the physically risky things. Not just because we tend to be stronger in terms of upper body strength. Not just because psychologically we are more aggressive. We tend to be. But because we're more expendable. How long does a man need to be there to conceive a child? Minimal. A few happy moments in the sexual act.
Yeah.
What?
Like 30 seconds.
Yeah. Now, it is a good thing for a pregnant woman to have her mate protecting and feeding her. It is a good thing for a child to have their father in their lives. These are good things. But in terms of minimalistic biology, we're needed for a very short period of time. So if someone is going to die in defense of the tribe, it's going to be us first. If someone is going to be saved for the sake of the tribe, it will be women and children first. That's the way of things. And almost any vigorous, healthy society understands this on a gut level. It is a man's duty to step up and protect. And today, because so many men are confused and so many women are confused, because our culture is fundamentally and profoundly confused about so many things, that is not necessarily taught and reinforced and respected. But it's the truth. And if you look around the world, look at little children, don't believe me, decide for yourself. what men and women are basically like, because we're not the same. We're not built the same. Our skeletal structure is not the same. Our muscular structure is not the same. Our central nervous system's proclivities are not the same. We are not the same. God in his wisdom, or evolution in its razor-like trimmingness, has chosen humanity, like all advanced creatures, to have two sexes. And these sexes serve different functions, complementary functions. Let's talk about the women. Women are gatherers. Women will strip a field bare of anything edible, more effectively than anything except locusts. When the women work, they go out in groups. They are the camp. They don't leave the camp. They are the camp. The women are constantly with one another, as well as with the children and whatever old people are still around. The women are the camp. So if you look at little girls at play, typically and traditionally, little girls are much less physical than the guys and much more social. They'll have tea parties, they'll have little dramas, they will scheme and plan and decide who's dating who and who cares about who. It's a different world. Yes? Okay. Now, again, there are exceptions. And our society favors tomboys, which are girls who like playing with the boys and playing like the boys. But typically and in general terms, if you want somebody who's going to risk physical harm, choose a boy. If you want somebody who's going to be able to scheme and be subtle, choose a girl. Because boys and girls are different in this way. Why? Because girls are constantly around other people. Girls are constantly social. It's important for a guy to be able to interact with the physical world as it is. Hunting, gathering, war. You're out there in the environment fighting for survival. Women are together. So the challenge is, how do you stay together without irritating one another to the point where you want to kill one another? Because that happens. So women, by being more social, more socially aware, more socially involved, talk. They make small talk, chatter, 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 as their hands are busy taking every valuable leaf or root or strand or branch or bug or grub or whatever. The men provide the hunt, the meat that is an occasional meal that nutrifies the tribe. Women provide the daily routine, vegetation, bugs, insects, grubs, the smaller things. If they find a hive, that's honey. Women work together. They work in groups. It's important for them to understand one another. It's important for them to have ways of blowing off steam that are not socially destructive. It's important for women to function as a unit. Why? Because for a child to live, a woman needs to be around at least 9 months for the pregnancy. Ideally, for a few years for the nursing and the pregnancy. And again, like having a father around, it tends to be better for a child to have mom around as well as dad around and not be orphaned too young. It tends to be. I know there are exceptions, but it tends to be a better thing. So the men hunt and the women gather. Need this be an unequal situation? No. It is a complementary civilization situation. Only feminism making it seem unequal. Well, we don't do the same things as the men. No, you don't. Because you're women, and this is a primitive hunter-gatherer society. No, not everyone does the same bleeping job. Without the women, the men would die. Without the men, the women would not progress. They would be stagnant. We need each other. Both are important. My grandmother used to say, a man's work is from sun to sun, a woman's work is never done. She grew up at a time where there were no household appliances, where a woman at home full-time kept house because she did everything by hand, from cook from scratch every single meal, to darning socks, to repairing shoes, to repairing pants. to keeping the house clean. You know how you wash the clothes? You physically take soap, wrap the clothing around them, get a washboard, put some warm water in, and wash it. You know how you dry clothes? If you're lucky, you put them through a wringer and then you hang them up. Otherwise, you just hang them up. You know how you vacuum the rug? You take the rug outside, hang it somewhere, and beat it with a broom. Everything by hand. So, in order for a family to have a decent lifestyle, you needed a housewife at home. And if she died, or if there was a problem, then the household was not in as good a shape if you had a father with kids alone. When my wife and I got married, I vowed to love, honor, cherish. She vowed to love, honor, and obey. Does this mean I get everything I want? No. It means I'm responsible. If you understand psychology, the psychology of men and women, understand making a man responsible for something is better than anything else at disciplining him to take care of it. I cared about a bicycle that I worked for all summer on a farm when I was 13 years old. More than I cared about almost anything else I had ever gotten because I earned it. When my wife promised to obey, that didn't mean I get to win every argument. What it means is the final choice on big issues is mine. And that means I'd better darn well live up to the trust she's given me. This isn't the way it is for everyone. But we have been together by God's grace since January of 1985. We've been married since July of 1990. We work together. We understand one another as well as any two people can. And one of the first decisions we made was not to compete with one another. A lot of couples do. We don't. I'm not saying what works for us will work for anyone else. I'm not saying what works for us will work forever. I'm genuinely humbled, and I think it's a gift. But to view everything through the crabbed lens of competition is to lead to a false and hateful conclusion. The falsity is, women haven't had any choices until very recently because women were second-class citizens. Yeah, well, that's kind of true. How many choices did most men have who were born as peasants, who were born as serfs, who were born as slaves, who were born as lower-class workers to serve upper-class interests? Most men didn't have choices any more than women did. They just had a different role. Equality is an interesting virtue. It is obviously fair and desirable to have equality of opportunity, to have a fair chance to do what you think is your role in life. Our society is wealthy and powerful enough to give each of you that opportunity, to decide if you want to live on the coast or in the inland, to decide if you want to be a doctor or a lawyer, an architect, a teacher, or to own a restaurant, or to own a business, or to serve in the military, or to just work hard and take care of your family. Are you a liberal or a conservative, Democrat or a Republican? Are you a Jew, a Catholic Christian, a Protestant Christian, a different kind of Christian? Are you Muslim? Are you atheist or agnostic? These are all choices you have. Paleolithic hunter-gatherers is much more simple. Men hunted, women gathered. Now, even then, there were exceptions. In Siberia, there are nomadic tribes that have a concept called the will man. The will man is a woman who, at adolescence, makes a choice to live like a man. And she has to go through the same physically harsh manhood ritual that men do. And if she survives, from that point, no one will treat her as a woman. She'll be a small, weak guy, but she'll be a guy. That's what she wants to be. She can be it. But at no point can she go back. She will not get the deference that women get. She will not get the restraint that women are treated with. She will be treated like a guy. And guys with one another can be pretty brutal, especially in a Siberian nomadic tribe. In almost every society, there are places for people who don't fit in, as shaman, witch doctors, as healers. But in general terms, men hunted and women gathered. And I've just gone into some detail as to why. I know it's not modern, I know it's not politically correct, but it is what it was. And we still bear the legacy of it. Because even today, no two people are equal. Not in ability, not in dedication, not in talent, not in strength or dexterity or anything. People are different. Having equality of opportunity, that's freedom. That's the American way. Having equity or equality of result, that's not. That's somebody deciding no matter what you put in, you all get the same result. Imagine grades equity. You can work as hard as you like. You'll never get anything but a D plus or a C minus. You can do nothing. You'll never get anything less than a D plus or a C minus. Everyone puts in whatever they put in. Everyone gets out what they get out, the same. Do you think that anyone, except for a truly self-driven person, would work hard under those conditions? This is a fundamental flaw of socialism. We are not equal. We should be treated equally under the law. We should have equal opportunity, but we are not equal. None of us. I've just said a whole bunch. If any of you have other thoughts, I will respectfully listen and give you the floor.
So, again, I remember reading somewhere that when women started to enter the workforce, it's because the economy had changed so much and they needed to support their families. So there was really no option because the men weren't making enough.
Right, the Arab oil embargo in the 1970s in the United States, for example. Yes. But entering the workforce doesn't necessarily mean competing. Men and women who both work can both work without, making it a competition between the two. They are working together to raise children or to make a nice family life. So anyway, I'm sorry. Go on.
Yeah, that's kind of what I just...
Okay. Yeah, no, it's not. Necessity drove most women into the workforce. Ambition drove a few. Some women truly thought, who were baby boomers, who grew up after World War II, that unless they had a man's corporate job where they had a secretary and a company car and a company bank account and travel, that they weren't living a full life. And a lot of women of that generation went after those kind of goals. And many of them found rising heart attack rates, rising stroke rates, rising hypertension of all kinds. They didn't necessarily find a joyful existence. And some of them chose to embrace a more traditional role, raise children. Some of them found that very satisfying in a way that business wasn't. I don't know. I'm not saying I know what's right for all people. I'm just saying that it's hyper simplistic to argue that because women and men are different, that treating them differently is somehow sexist or oppressive or patriarchal or whatever. I don't believe in equity. Never have, never will.
And then, yeah, also you brought up kind of feminism. So
Yes.
from kind of my experience and the people that I've talked to, the feminism is more like equal opportunities for everyone, not just women. But some people like to take it to the extreme, like everything else, and make it all about the women, how the patriarchy's crushing them and all the opportunities when they can't really see from the small bit, the tiny bit of research that I've done. Men had those societal expectations on them to provide for the family, to work hard, to compete with other men for the women, and it affected both sides, but some people like to blow it out of proportion.
Yeah, well, also, what's the alternative? Some utopian society where we don't have human drives anymore? I've never understood that. I've never really understood what the end game of feminism was. To replace patriarchy with a matriarchy? It's just the same thing with different people in charge. I tend to believe that the United States produces the best answer, which is we allow people to choose. And within very, very, very great scope. Does everyone start on the same at the same place? Absolutely not. But everyone has a chance. Trust me. If you come from a ghetto background and you want to get into a good college, if you work hard in high school, the admissions department will find a way to get you into a good college because they want diversity. And their idea of diversity is to have people from ghetto backgrounds and people from suburban backgrounds and people from country backgrounds, people from international backgrounds, all coming together as students and cross-pollinating cultural ideas with one another. That at least is the way it used to be. What we have is a meritocracy. In a meritocracy, you get what you earn. Talented people earn more. More driven people earn more. I can tell you, having been a teacher for as long as I have, having been alive for as long as I have, working hard is the universal common denominator. If you're willing to work hard, you will find some success. It may not be everything you ever wanted, but you'll find some success because most people, unfortunately, don't work as hard as they could. And if you really are dedicated and work hard and put in a good day's work for a good day's pay, it will pay off. Maybe not every time, maybe not immediately, but in the long run, it's much better to be a hard worker than it is not to be, regardless of your level of native talent. Does that make sense? In any case, what we're going to do is next time, we're going to talk about the... well, actually, I'm not going to talk about it next time yet. So, forget I said that. Hunter-gatherers include my Irish ancestors from the clans before they settled down and started farming. They include most North American Indian tribes, except for the Pueblo and the Anasazi and the Zuni, and of course the Aztecs and the Incas. Why are they nomadic? Because the women clear out everything near the camp within a couple of months. So every 2 or 3 months, the camp moves. Every 2 or 3 months, the camp has to wander. Now, it goes on a circuit. Nomads usually travel back to the same camp every 3 to 5 years, which is enough time for all the stuff to grow back so that the women can strip the land bare near the camp and so that the men can hunt, and there's plenty to hunt. 3 to 5 years. So, if you stay in one place and you're hunter-gatherers, you will die. You will clear out the area with gathering, and there'll be nothing left within an easy walk. And you will hunt the area so that the food chain is completely destabilized, and then you'll starve to death. You have to move. Now, understand what this means culturally. Let's say you have a young brave who is injured, or a young woman who is injured in childbirth, or you have somebody who's old and they can no longer work. This is the tradition amongst many American Plains Indians, and I believe it was the tradition in many or most of the Paleolithic nomadic hunter-gathering tribes. A person like that will be kept while they're in a particular camp. They'll be fed, they'll be nurtured, the hope will be that they'll heal, prayers will be said, the loved ones will try their best. But when it becomes time to move, unless it's a very unusual circumstance, in which case they'll be put on a travoy and dragged, the people in these tribes will leave their loved ones behind to die. The loved ones will insist on it. Because if they can't heal in a reasonable amount of time, every bite they take is out of the mouths of their children or their grandchildren. No one wants to be a burden. So the tribe wishes them well and leaves, and they die. Among the Eskimo or the Inuit peoples of the Arctic, they have a tradition Usually the people themselves decide. An old person or an old couple, man and wife, or an old buddy or two, will realize that they're no longer doing enough work to justify their food. It's time to go to the sea. So usually they wait for a stormy night. Maybe there'll be a celebration. Maybe there'll be no notice. Middle of the night, the old people or old person gets up, leaves the igloo, picks a direction, and starts walking, and doesn't stop until he drops and dies. If there's ocean nearby, he'll step into the ocean, or she will. It's not that these old people love their lives any less than you do. They love their life. To live is to live in hope. But when you're a Paleolithic nomadic hunter-gatherer, there is no food surplus. Everything that you eat is a result of the labor of the women gathering and the men hunting. There's nothing really extra. I mean, yeah, occasionally you can make the meat rain by causing a fire, and you'll have too much food, and a lot of it will rot, but you feverishly eat what you can to store it as fat, and you smoke what you can if you learn how to smoke your meat, so that it will last, so that it will be preserved by cooking and smoking. But except for moments like that, there's not a food surplus. Every mouthful is accounted for. And so when somebody is long-term injured or somebody gets too old to support themselves and participate, they cannot be fed. This is a discipline that's hard for modern people to understand. How would you feel leaving a loved one that you really have had in your life? They mean so much to you, and then it's not that they die of old age or in an accident, it's that they die because you leave them behind. Or they die because they go out into the storm, go to the sea, and are never seen again. Except as bones, maybe years later. This is the discipline of the hunter-gatherer. Next time I intend to show you extended scenes from a movie about the Paleolithic called Quest for Fire, which is pretty good. You may talk quietly among yourselves. Thank you for your attention, and we're done.